week, if you were listening to Fine Point in particular, you heard about this amazing story out of ProPublica. ProPublica published findings of an investigation they conducted into a Microsoft computer system our Department of Defense uses to store sensitive information in cloud-based storage. What they found, if you'll remember, was alarming. Not only are there severe security risks with putting DoD computers in the hands of China-based engineers, but the Department of Defense had little to no idea that this system was even in place. Here is what the issue is. DoD had contracted Microsoft 10 years ago to provide their systems to store data. Microsoft Systems uses Chinese engineers to maintain the system with the condition that each of these engineers are provided with a DoD digital escort. But the problem was, if you'll remember, is that these digital escorts have little to no idea what these Chinese engineers are doing, or whether they're stealing or leaking the information from their systems. They didn't know because they lack the technical expertise to track their actions. These were highly skilled Chinese engineers Microsoft was using, tasked to maintaining our information stored on DoD computers. When ProPublica asked the DoD if they were taking this issue seriously, the spokesperson for the Defense Information Systems Agency, Devin King, responded at the time the article went out, "Literally no one seems to know anything about this, so I don't know where to go from here." This expose cased major action. Senator Tom Cotton wrote a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth asking for an investigation into the matter, to which Secretary Hegseth replied, "Our team is already looking into this ASAP. Foreign engineers from any country, including, of course, China, should never be allowed to maintain or access DoD systems." No kidding. The following day, Secretary Hegseth made the following announcement. Listen.
And that's why today I'm announcing that China will no longer have any involvement whatsoever in our cloud services effective immediately. And at my direction, the department will also initiate, as fast as we can, a 2-week review or faster to make sure that what we uncovered isn't happening anywhere else across the DoD. We will continue to monitor and counter all threats to our military infrastructure and online networks.
Just 3 days after publishing the original expose, ProPublica reported that Microsoft has stopped using China-based engineers to support Defense Department cloud computing systems. Microsoft's Chief Communications Officer, Frank Shaw, posted this on X. In response to concerns raised earlier this week about U.S.-supervised foreign engineers, Microsoft has made changes to our support for U.S. government customers to assure that no China-based engineering teams are providing technical assistance for DoD government cloud and related services. We remain committed to providing the most secure services possible to the U.S. government, including working with our national security partners to evaluate and adjust our security protocols as needed. While it is a troubling story that this issue existed and our top security officials had no idea, for 10 years, mind you, we can take comfort in the fact that steps are being made at this point to secure this situation. The question now is, what, if anything, were the Chinese Communist Party able to obtain, and how will they use it against us? To help us sort through this mess, we bring in the congressman who has been very vocal and active advocating for identifying and removing CCP threats to our country, former Green Beret and North Carolina Congressman Pat Harrigan. Congressman, I cannot tell you how just absurd this story got. The more you dug into it, the more it just became appalling, and it became a huge testament to the size and ridiculousness of our government.
The idiocracy of Washington, D.C. is just sometimes astounding, Chanel. I mean, it's honestly beyond words. But the more that we continue to dig into China, the more that we find that they've just infiltrated our systems, our people, our processes, all across our government. And I think this is just the latest example of that, unfortunately.
I mean, did it surprise you that this story was something that no one at DoD leadership seemed to know about?
No, it's not surprising at all, particularly because the initial contract was let 10 years ago. And so the turnover of personnel that you have, I mean, this is exactly what we saw with the Military Installation Retail Security Act that we sponsored the bill earlier this year that we just got through the NDAA markup, when we found out that GNC, which used to be a wholly owned American company, had transitioned to a company wholly owned by the Chinese Communist Party and had vertically integrated their supply chain almost completely to China, and nobody knew about it. This is just another example of that, and it is not the last example that we are going to find, Chanel, as we continue to dig here.
You know, what's different about this story and the GNC story, and you were one of the first out there to talk about this and raise this alarm about GNC, Chinese-owned, now Chinese-owned company on U.S. military bases collecting military personnel data. So you were out there raising the alarms on this. The story was almost understandable because it was just kind of something that slipped under the radar. It was one of those stories where GNC was originally American-owned when it started off at these bases, but it became Chinese-owned over the course of several years through buyouts and such. In this particular story about the Microsoft Chinese engineers working on DoD computers, they started the contract like this. The original contract seemed to implicate that they had to use these Chinese engineers to begin with. This wasn't a slow evolution.
Yeah, it's absolutely beyond comprehension to understand that for the purpose of fulfilling an American digital contract, that we had an American contractor, one as large as Microsoft, that was totally dependent upon Chinese engineers that were supposedly under the advisement of digital escorts. That was an acceptable methodology of moving forward on a highly sensitive and classified defense contract is just beyond comprehension. You can't understand it. And I think that the more that we dig into this and find out exactly what circumstances were at play, why decisions were made when they were made, we are not going to like the answers, Chanel. And as I said, this is not the last piece of Chinese infiltration that we're going to find in our government right now. There's so much of it, you can't even begin to comprehend. All we can do is just continue to dig out here.
I have no doubt that you're absolutely right on that last point. The next question, I guess, and I guess only time will actually tell on this one, but it'll depend very much, it sounds like, on internal investigations and maybe congressional investigations to look into what damage has been done. Do you think that's actually going to happen at the congressional level, or are they going to press on the DoD side to look into what possibly is out there now because of this system?
From what I'm hearing, Chanel, I think it very well will be both. And I think it should be both, right? We have to have the oversight perspective from Congress. Otherwise, really, nothing is going to happen if we don't shine a light on it. Secondarily, we've got to have a broad-based review in DoD, as Secretary Hegseth said, to make sure that this isn't happening anywhere else. But we also have to understand the vulnerabilities that we created over the last 10 years that we might not be aware of because of the way that this contract was let and the way that it was performed. And so you've got to understand that we have, very sophisticated and competent Chinese engineers working alongside digital escorts in the United States that were, farmed out by a staffing agency to Microsoft. These folks were not operating in a league of their own. These Chinese engineers were far more capable than the Microsoft staffers were. So we don't know exactly what type of vulnerabilities have been created through this arrangement.
Over the span of 10 years, Congressman, 10.
Over the span of 10 years, I know. You can't laugh at this because it's so serious to our national security. But part of what needs to happen is we need to have an education in this country. China is not our friend. They have not been our friend ever. They're communistic. They seek to undermine us at every point that they possibly can over the entire globe. We have got to stop trusting them as a partner, as a friend, and certainly we should give them no credence when it comes to our national security. None.
Well, it sounds like Microsoft needs to stop trusting them, or we need to stop trusting Microsoft until they can assure us they won't be doing things like this again. But that will be for another segment. Congressman, we're out of time. Thank you very much for making time today for us. We appreciate it.
Chanel, thanks for having me.
Stay tuned. Iran is meeting with world leaders this week as they try to advocate for nuclear production. Yes, you heard that right. How are their allies faring in all of this? Former State Department Iran advisor Gabriel Nerona joins us next to discuss. We'll be right back.